A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to StudyIQ English, your favorite UPSC platform in India. A very good morning, Rishi. A very good morning, all my dear aspirants. So let's begin analyzing the Hindu newspaper for today. That's for 4th September 2025. And yes, we are taking up the Hindu New Delhi edition for discussion. So let me quickly show you the exam relevant articles for today's newspaper. Once again, today's newspaper is quite comprehensive. We have many important articles to cover. Although from the detailed articles, we have just about three. But the remaining short newses are also quite heavy for today. So let's quickly start analyzing. And then, of course, we will talk about prelims practice questions as well. Should there be anything, any clarification from your end, you're most welcome to chat with me. You're most welcome to communicate it to me. A very good morning order. So here is the list of today's articles. We have total 7 articles to consider. The first 2 articles need a very detailed analysis. I have picked them from the editorial page. While the remaining are again quite diverse, yes, we absolutely have GS paper 2, lots of articles today on social justice. Then we have some articles on international relations. There is an article from the economy page. So let's begin from the very first one itself, that is page number 6. There is a new bill created by the government, a new law created by the government, and this is known as India's new maritime law. Let's talk about what is this and how will it change India's blue economy, that is India's maritime landscape, India's sea-based economy. Very, very good morning, Niharika, Deepesh, Adi, Bulbul. Welcome to our session today. So as I said, the first article is page 6. Now the article, if you talk about the key issue, what's the key controversy happening? Then the key controversy here is regarding a new law that is being created in India, and this is known as Indian Ports Bill. Okay, so the Indian Ports Bill 2025, as the name tells you, it is with regards to improving Indian port infrastructure. Ultimately, we are trying to become a huge blue economy. A blue economy is one such that uses its sea resources, its maritime resources towards economic growth. Now, India has a massive coastline, with Gujarat having the highest. So, all the peninsular ports in India, they need a complete overhauling. Yes, we need to dominate when it comes to security and trade from the sea. Hence comes the Indian Ports Bill 2025. This has been passed in the Rajya Sabha. So what is this new Indian Ports Bill 25? So this bill has come and it has tried to replace the old Indian Ports Act. Okay, so we had the old Ports Act in India. This was the Indian Ports Act of 1908. And the new bill today, the Indian Ports Bill 2025, has tried to change that. It is the replacement of that. Just like your Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita has replaced the IPC, similarly, the new Indian Ports Bill 25 will replace the old Ports Act of India 1908. Clear? Okay. What is this new bill all about? So this bill will cover 3 more parts. One is the Coastal Shipping Act 2025. So I'm talking about the structure of this new Indian Ports Bill. It has 3 parts to it. One is the Coastal Shipping Act. Coastal Shipping Act 2025. Clear? What is the second one? The second part is the Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2025. So it is the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act 2025. And then there is a third component, which is Merchant Shipping Act 2025. Okay, so I will abbreviate this, Merchant Shipping Act 25. So do remember that all 3 are the components of this new bill that has been passed in the Rajya Sabha. Once again, what is the bill? Indian Ports Bill 2025. Now, why do we need these new bills? Why do we need this new structure? Let's quickly see what is the aim of this new legislation. The overall aim is, 1, to modernize India's maritime governance, align India with global international practices, support more trade, investment and infrastructure in the blue economy. So ultimately the intention is to, as I said, promote the blue economy. Very easily you can get a question in GS paper 3 regarding the importance of trade and investment in India's blue economy. So always remember, blue economy is about sea and marine resources. Yes, India has plenty resources, whether it's seafood, whether it's critical minerals, whether it's untapped natural gas, crude oil. There is so much possibility that we have. All of this comes within our territorial waters and it is yet to be explored. So today the Indian government, as it has passed the new Indian Ports Bill, it wants to take an advantage of all these. Okay. Very good morning, Shaggy. Very good morning, Priyanka. No, Shaggy, you are absolutely on time. We have just started the first article. So what is the aim of the bill? Yes, absolutely the aim is to promote the blue economy. And as I mentioned, under the blue economy, we are now trying to modernize our maritime trade, our maritime structure. Plus, we are also trying to support more foreign direct investment. Very important for GS paper 3. We are trying to attract more FDI in the marine sector or in the marine trade sector. If this is the aim of the bill, what is the problem then? Why has it become a controversy? There is nothing wrong with it. The bill is just a modernization of the previous act. The bill talks about modernizing maritime structure, aligning India with best global practices. Yes, the bill talks about more maritime governance. Then what is the problem? Why the controversy? Controversy is happening because critics are not happy with the bill. What are the critics and the opposition parties saying? Point number one, they are saying this new maritime bill is completely dominated by the central government, which means it is an attack on India's federal structure. It will take away all the powers from states when it comes to tax collection, financial decisions, control over key ports. Everything is going to be passed on to the central government. Why? Why are they so afraid of the bill? Point number one, they are saying that the new maritime bill talks about creating the new maritime state development council. I hope my handwriting is visible and legible to each one of you. In case anybody is having a trouble with reading the font size, do let me know and I will make it bigger for you. So the critics are angry because the bill talks about creating a new maritime state development council and this will be led by the union minister. It will be led by the central government cabinet level minister, which means that they will have a complete control over states. The power and the authority of controlling Indian ports, India's maritime trade has been completely passed on to the central government. The states are losing their authority. That's one problem. Second problem, critics are saying that states now onwards will not be able to adjust their financial frameworks regarding trade collection, putting penalties and taxes on various ship owners. All of that will now go from state to the center. So states cannot adjust their financial framework under this bill. The bill is too centralized for states to participate. The third problem is states are saying that this bill will force various state governments to comply and ally forcefully with the central schemes like the PM Gati Shakti scheme and the central government led Sagar Mala scheme. So the states are saying we will be forced to adjust, to fine tune our policies to central government schemes like PM Gati Shakti, very important scheme. Similarly to schemes like Sagar Mala. That's what the article is saying. One more problem has come up. The problem is regarding dispute resolution. The earlier law, that is the old time Indian Ports Act 1908, which has been replaced today, under that, there was a clause 17, which allowed for jurisdiction, which allowed for conflict resolution. But today the problem is the modern clause 17 under the newer Indian Ports Bill is stopping any civil court from hearing disputes. Now, this again is a matter of concern. In case the state governments are unhappy with the decision taken by the center, they cannot do much because the clause number 17 of this modern Indian Ports Bill will prohibit any hearing to be allowed in a civil court. So the central government decision will be imposing on the states. Second problem is that the only way disputes can be solved is through an internal complaint committee or the internal committee. This internal committee will be set up by the authorities themselves. And this committee this is the only power who can interfere in various disputes regarding maritime trade. Then, this bill therefore will also discourage private investment. Why will it discourage private investment? Because it's too much controlled by the central government. Tomorrow, if there is a dispute, then under this new act, there is no provision of any civil court hearing, no provision of any litigation. Why will private companies want to invest in India's maritime sector if the rules are becoming so centralized and rigid? Besides, there is another problem that has come in the picture. This is about ownership. Now, here I will teach you a new concept which the article has mentioned. Please try to understand it very carefully. Under this new Indian Ports Bill, there is another problem that the law that India was following since so many years, the Indian Ports Act 1908, under the earlier law, only Indian ships or the Indian flagged vessels with 100% Indian ownership were allowed to navigate in India's territorial waters. They were the only ones who were allowed to carry on trade through shipping channels. They were completely Indian. But today, a new law is being introduced under this new act, the Indian Ports Bill 2025. So, what does the new provision say? The new provision is saying that we will allow foreign participation in this sector. Now, this is becoming slightly scary for Indian ship owners and Indian companies. Why? Because the new law is allowing partial Indian ownership, which includes people of Indian origin, overseas card holders, as well as foreign nationals. This might cause a problem with regards to security because the new concept that has come in the picture is known by the name of, I will tell you the name, it is known by the name of BBCD. Please understand, I will explain it to you. So this new bill that we are talking about, the Indian Ports Bill, allows for BBCD. What is BBCD? Quite important, GS paper 3, trade, investment, marine sector trade. BBCD. BBCD stands for bareboat charter cum demise. The new bill has allowed this. Let me explain. Bareboat charter cum demise. Now, demise is death. We all know that. Charter is a law. So, what is this bareboat charter cum demise? This is one provision that will be allowed from today under the new Indian Ports Bill. What is this all about? Now, please understand that many Indian shipping companies who are medium scale, small scale, they do not have money to buy expensive ships. They lack the resources to purchase expensive commercial vessels for themselves. In that case, under the BBCD clause, now these Indian shipping companies will be allowed to lease out foreign ships. If you cannot buy, you can hire them on rent at least. That's the new provision. So you can take it on the lease from the foreign companies, rent them out. Once you have taken it on a rent, it is your responsibility to take care of the fuel, to take care of the crew, to take care of the maintenance. You are just hiring it, just like you hire a rental property. You use it for trade and fishing. You maintain that, you do the refueling, you do the daily maintenance of wear and tear, and you provide for the crew. But there is a separate provision also. Under the CD part, the cum demise part, tomorrow, if as an Indian company you feel that now I have gained enough money, I have earned some money, and today I can afford to buy the ship also, you can. Slowly, the transfer of ownership will be done to you. So, which means that now, under the BBCD, Indian shipping companies who have less funds will be able to firstly rent out something as similar as lease out foreign ships because they are better in quality and they are larger. So you can do that. You can use it. Plus, you have to be responsible for maintaining it. But later, you can also buy. So buying is allowed. By the time you have enough money, you can buy this ship from foreign companies. Now, here comes the controversy. A lot of critics are saying that what if, even after the purchase by Indian shipping companies, the paper transfer takes time? So, much more strict regulations are needed. The foreign companies can cheat Indian shipping companies by saying that under the BBCD, after say 5 years of using it on rent, now you can also buy our ship. But what if the paper transfer doesn't happen on time? What if the papers are fake? In reality, it is the foreign companies who continue to dominate and own these ships. Then what's the benefit for India? There is no benefit. It is in fact dangerous to allow so much foreign participation in our territorial waters. So that's the concern and controversy about the new Indian Ports Bill. Do remember the main points. It is a new legislation recently passed by Rajya Sabha. The purpose is to completely replace the age-old obsolete Indian Ports Act 1908. This new Indian Ports Bill has three components to it. One is the Coastal Shipping Act, one is the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act, and the third is Merchant Shipping Act. The main purpose is to modernize, to further promote trade in India's maritime blue economy, to align India with international standards in shipping and fishing. But it is being criticized for two main reasons. One, the authority under the new bill is completely in the central government hands. So states are experiencing some fear. They feel that perhaps our control on key areas like marine trade, fishing will be taken away. Besides, the clause number 17 of this new Ports Act 2025 also does not allow any civil court to hear any proceeding or pleadings. That again makes the system opaque. The third and the most dangerous point is that it allows BBCD, bareboat charter cum demise, under which Indian shipping companies who are less on funds can take on lease or rent foreign ships and use them, maintain them just the way they want. But tomorrow, if they are interested in buying these ships, they will be allowed to buy also under the cum demise part of this charter. But the real problem is, what if the paper transfer takes years to happen and foreign companies slowly monopolize Indian territorial waters? Absolutely well said, Order. It's pretty much like what had happened during the colonial times. So marine sector is always the most sensitive sector in any country's geopolitics. We have seen enough examples, whether it's South China, whether it's Indo-Pacific. It's always the country who monopolizes the sea. Like in India, we had the huge Chola Empire. Why was it so predominant? Because it was commanding its naval force very well. Similarly, today, China claims to monopolize the South China Sea. It is trying to make incursions in the IOR. The reason is that, yes, they have very sophisticated marine laws. They are very active at sea. So similar thing comes in picture here. By allowing people with overseas citizenship cards, by allowing foreign nationals to come and use their boats in our waters, we might face the threat of losing sovereignty over our blue economy. That's the point. Plus, the worst part, the worst victims will be the small ship owners or small fishermen who will have too many compliance burdens on them, too many licenses to take, and too many clearances to pass. So perhaps it will also impact their trade benefits. That's the article. Let's see how the future shapes out to be for this sector. Now, with the question, with reference to India's maritime legislation, look at the following statements. One, Indian Ports Bill 2025, the new one, creates the Maritime State Development Council chaired by Union Minister of Ports. Second, under the Merchant Shipping Act 2025, Indian flagged vessel, which means Indian ships, must be 100% Indian owned. And three, the Coastal Shipping Act 2025 completely stops foreign vessels from domestic coastal trade under all circumstances. I would say it's a direct question. Let's see which of these codes are valid. You can choose the answer. And then I have placed it in the last slide, of course. Absolutely, because they had the control over the Navy, Shaggy. That's a valid point you've made there. So the next article again comes from page 7, and this article says, should reservations exceed the 50% cap? Why do I call this the most important article for the day? Because it is at the heart of India's biggest social, economic, political controversy. Although this relates to GS paper 2, reservation politics, caste divide, and social justice. But in reality, I would say it is one of the most key controversies in India today. Not just from today, but it has been happening now since the last 10 years. Yes, we are talking about the quota politics, reservation politics in India. We all know that our constitution under Articles 15 and 16, our constitution has clearly given the government the power to provide special benefits to the people coming from vulnerable segments like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, women, the other tribals, and people with some or the other physical disability. So quite in line with constitution, right from 1950 onwards, the government of India has had a policy of giving reservations to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, not only in central government jobs but also in educational institution, partially or fully funded by the government. The purpose is to provide them substantive equality. What is substantive equality? There is a difference between substantive equality and formal equality. Please understand to begin with. So, there are two concepts I want you to know: substantive and formal equality. When we say formal equality, we mean that each and every citizen in the country should be treated similarly. No exceptions should be allowed. For example, long back under Indira Gandhi government, royal titles were banned in India. Under Indira Gandhi regime, the Prime Minister, she strongly believed that nobody should use titles like Raja, Maharaja, the great Thakur, or the King, because it creates inequality. So, therefore, yes, the government, quite under Article 18 of the Constitution, only recognizes those titles which have been achieved through merit, not those titles which are royal or discriminatory in nature. Correct? That's the concept of formal equality, where every citizen should be treated the same. No special privileges to anybody whatsoever. Quite in line with Article 14, Article 21. But there is another concept that India has adopted, that is substantive equality. Under substantive equality, it is believed that although every citizen is the same in the eyes of law, but there are some people who experience more economic social backwardness, and they should therefore be given some or the other reservation, some or the other special protection to bring them at a level playing field with other people. A very good example here could be the one-third reservation given to women today in legislative assemblies, in Lok Sabhas and in panchayats and municipal corporations. Similarly, the scheduled caste reservation, scheduled tribe reservation, and from 1990 onwards, even the OBC reservation. Correct? So, India from the beginning, right from 1950, despite having the right to equality, right to life and dignity, we strongly believe in the notion of substantive equality, where people who are the needy ones should be given special privileges. Correct? If that's Indian history, then Indian history is also characterized by certain political controversies when it comes to substantive equality. For example, in 1950, when the Constitution of India started giving, through its constitutional order, special reservation to the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe, it was believed, according to the traditional Indian caste model, please understand, that we are giving reservations only to those who used to be the untouchables or the Dalit communities of the past of the Aryan society. These were the people who were considered by the Aryans as the outcast, the untouchable, the panchamas. These today are called the scheduled caste. Yes, from 1950 we are giving them reservation, a good amount of reservation, 15% at an all India basis. But long back there was a committee that was adopted. Okay. And this committee was in general referred to as the Mandal Committee. Under the Mandal Committee, the government wanted some investigation regarding which are the other backward castes in India. For example, in the Aryan scheme of caste system, if Brahmins were at the top, followed by Kshatriya Varna, followed by the Vaishya tier, the last one happened to be the Shudras. who were treated as the slaves, but they were still a part of society. Although they were mistreated, they were doing the menial occupations like scavenging, taking care of the dead body burials, and all these activities, but still they were a part of society, which means they were not a victims of untouchability. But what about them? Just because they were not experiencing untouchability like scheduled caste, do they not deserve any reservation? They were also at the same time, despite being a part of society, they were also deprived of education, senior employment opportunities. They were deprived of their basic dignity. Hence, they also needed some protection. Hence came the Mandal Commission in 1979 that was led by Dr. B.P. Mandal. This commission did some investigation and showed a very disturbing result. It said 52% of Indian population is a victim of backwardness. Now the government was under confusion. So for 10 years, the government did not publish the report of the Mandal Committee. But much later, when VP Singh became the Prime Minister, we are talking about 1989 period, the Mandal Committee report was published and the government decided that yes, if 52% is the level of total backwardness, then not only for the scheduled caste, not only for the scheduled tribe, which we are already doing, let's introduce a new quota for other backward classes. Now this became classes, please understand, not caste, other backward classes. Because here came not only the Hindu Shudras, but also those who had converted into other religions like Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity. But still, they continued to be backward economically and socially. Hence, many religions were allowed to represent here. Any individual, any community who was a victim of backwardness, social economic backwardness because of either caste system or because they got converted into other religions, they were allowed representation here, and the government since then is giving 27% All India reservation to OBCs. That's the controversy. But the real problem came at the point of 1970s and 1980s when the government said that listen, we are giving too much reservation, 27% OBC, 15% scheduled caste, about 7.5% scheduled tribe. Then in 2019, we also started for people who are poor, economically weaker sections. Now, with this level of quota reservation, a Supreme Court controversy broke out. What was this controversy? Through various jurisdictions, we have seen a very conflicting attitude from the Supreme Court. For example, if we talk about 1962, there is a very famous case known as Balaji versus the state of Mysuru, 1962. Under this case, the Supreme Court said a reasonable reservation is that which closes at 50% limit. So we cannot allow the total reservation quota limit, whether it is including SC, ST, OBC, or any other category. It should not exceed the upper cap of 50%. That is what it said. But immediately after that, there was another court case, State of Kerala versus MN State of Kerala versus NM Thomas case. This is 1975. Here the Supreme Court said that since reservation is about giving people substantive equality, there should be no upper limit. Once more confusion came. But the ultimate confusion came after the Mandal Committee decision. That was in the form of, as you were mentioning, order, the very famous case called Indira Sahni case. Okay, this is a very famous court case in India known as Indira Sahni case. It is also known as Indira Shone case. So either way, it is fine. Now, in Indira Sahni case, the government once again said that there has to be an upper 50% ceiling, an upper 50% cap on total reservation limit. Beyond that, we will not allow reservation except in certain extraordinary circumstances. So this clause was there, except in certain extraordinary situations, we may think about it, but usually the upper cap should be 50%. If this is the rule in India, then today what is going on? Today there are states like Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Bihar, which are reaching to 60-65% reservation. Recently, after the caste census, it is Bihar legislature which is saying that we want 85% quota total. Chhattisgarh has already breached the mark long back. So, where are we respecting our constitutional orders? If 50% is the upper limit on reservation today, what is going on? Today, 15% scheduled caste, 7.5% scheduled tribe, 27% with slight difference from one state to another OBC, 10% EWS, 4% people with disabilities. And yesterday you saw how in Maharashtra, after a prolonged agitation, the government is allowing some Maratha quotas also. Same thing is true for other states like Haryana and Punjab. So all in all, we are talking about a situation where reservations have already long back crossed the 50% upper limit. So is this not anti-constitutional? Is this not a defiance of a jurisdiction created by the Supreme Court? So therefore today, after this much breach of the 50% upper limit, the article is asking a question that where is India heading? If 100% becomes the quota limit, then who will be unreserved when everybody starts getting a reservation? As I mentioned to you, with the current scheme, Tamil Nadu already 69%. Rajasthan, Maharashtra long back crossed 50%. It is also highlighting how Bihar is now demanding 85%. So, what is this happening really? And is there a solution to the problem? So, interestingly, there is one more controversy here. Until 2017, various state governments used to refer to Schedule 9 of the Constitution. Now, Schedule 9 of the Constitution is a very controversial schedule, I must say. It is sometimes also known as the Coelho case schedule. The Coelho case schedule. Because in Schedule 9, we used to have some such issues that were beyond court's jurisdiction. The issues in Schedule 9 were not open to judicial review until some time. But in the recent past, Supreme Court is saying that judicial review is the basic structure of the Constitution. So everything in Schedule 9 should also be open for judicial investigation. So today there is a big controversy. Who is correct here? Supreme Court, central government, or the state governments? Is it really a question of substantive equality, or is it becoming a more vote bank politics? That in states, the governments are announcing at random reservation quotas just to get votes from various communities. Now, once again, there are few things that are confusing us too much. For example, there is a very famous commission known as the Rohini Commission. It was also known as the Backward Commission. It was created in 2017. And the purpose of Rohini Commission was to investigate the total level of reservation in India. The Rohini Commission is also saying that, unfortunately, 97% of the benefits that are given to OBCs under 27% quota, they are being only utilized by majority, rich, influential, backward caste communities. So which means 97% of the benefits that are coming under OBC quota are being used only by 25% people. The remaining people have no benefit. More than 1,000 castes among OBC are getting zero benefit of the reservation. So therefore, long back the government also spoke about creating a creamy layer criteria, that within OBC also we will have the creamy layer and the non-creamy layer. So one will be the NCL, one will be the CL. If you are somebody who is coming from OBC background, but your annual income is above 8 lakh rupees, then you become the creamy layer. You have enough money, you don't need or you will not get any benefit. But if you are poorer than that, you don't even have a national income of 8 lakh per annum, plus no other asset, no other resource, your parents are not in a class 1 government job, then you will get the benefits under creamy layer, under non-creamy layer. But today still that is creating a problem because many people are faking their documents. In many other states like Haryana, Punjab and Rajasthan, there are certain castes like the Ahir caste, the Gujar caste, the Yadava caste, many others, who are feeling that although they are considered upper caste in their states, but still they have been victims of educational deprivation. So they should also get the quota under OBC. So that controversy is going on in India. No wonder OBC is also known as the socially educationally backward class. It is a very open category. No wonder everybody wants to find reservation today. So is there a solution? There is no immediate solution except until we take some clear-cut steps. For example, one step we could take is to have a new caste census 2027, and the real data on ground should guide the policy. Please give reservation to those who really need it. Second thing is that just like the Rohini Commission has pointed out 97% of quota benefits are taken by just 25% people. So why can't we create a creamy layer and a non-creamy layer distinction even in the scheduled tribe and the scheduled castes, just like OBC? Similarly, why can't we talk about propagating missions like Skill India, Startup India? Give people the potential to generate income through better vocational skills, PM Vishwakarma scheme, for example. Why should everybody just run behind reservation? Then comes judicial re-examination. When already all the states are ready to breach the upper 50% cap, then why are we sitting with age-old and obsolete rules today? If 50% cap is unrealistic for India, then please, it's high time the government should revise it. Let it go up to 60-65% so that every day we don't have these controversies from happening. Now, some people are saying it is good to allow more than 50% upper limit because Indian population is on the rise. And if Mandal Commission said years back that 52% people are backward, maybe even today at least 40% and more people will continue to be backward. So give them more representation. It also says that Indira Sahni case said yes that 50% is the upper limit, but Indira Sahni case also allowed exceptions in certain unusual circumstances. So highlighting that unusual circumstances, we should increase the 50% upper limit. But those who are against it, they say that we will not remain a meritocratic society at all. Remember Article 14 on equality, Article 21 on right to life, Article 16, no discrimination on the basis of your caste, gender, place of birth, religion, race in matters of public employment. So we are overtly giving substantive equality and ignoring formal equality. Then it comes about how a culture of majoritarianism is coming in India, where even upper castes are also demanding for reservation under OBC because everybody feels reservation is a ticket to get better jobs and better education. But that's a very unhealthy culture. And at the same time, we are not understanding that current quotas are also not getting properly utilized. So rather than introducing new quotas, we can definitely try to first implement the existing ones more professionally. That's the pitch of the article. Very good morning, Vikash and Ravi. And let's have a look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding reservation in India. 1. Article 15 and 16 empower the government to make special provisions for social educational backward classes like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. 2. In the Indira Sahni case of 1992 that came after the Mandal Commission report, the Supreme Court said 50% ceiling has to be done on reservation, except in unusual circumstances. And the last is the Supreme Court in the Janhit Abhiyan case 2022 allowed 10% extra reservation for the economically weaker segments. I will give you a hint. This is correct. The EWS category came only after Janhit Abhiyan. But is this a violation of the 50% ceiling? Now that's for you to decide. You can try to answer the question and post your responses. Now the next article is page 7. Once again, GS paper 2. As I said, today we have a lot of articles from social justice. Once again, we are talking absolutely valid, Shaggy. We have an article on social justice, GS paper 2. Equality and justice towards vulnerable communities, including those who are a victim of benchmark disability. I have explained to you earlier also that although disability is a very, very socially recognized category, from one country to another, from one culture to another, the notion of disability is quite variable. For example, in many American cultures, in many European societies, they say that we are talking about today neurodiverse population. People who have issues like autism or the Tourette's syndrome. They are not people with disability. They are normal people who slightly have a variable neurological situation. They don't consider that disabled. But in many other cultures like India, it is considered disability. So disability is quite variable there. But let's understand that Indian government, for the purpose of identifying and supporting people with disabilities, recognizes 21 kinds of disorders, both mental and physical. And in these 21 disorders, if an individual is found to have 40% or more of a given disorder, then that person qualifies for reservation of 4% on an all India basis under the PWD category. That's Indian reservation system. But the article says recent reports have found out that people who are actually experiencing 40% and more disability are also the ones who do not have enough documents to support their claim. Although in reality they are experiencing some or the other mobility problem, visual problem, mental problem, neurological problem, but they do not have the enough medical papers which proves that yes, they are experiencing some disability, because under the government policy of giving 4% reservation to PWDs, it is mandatory for people to have the UDID, unique disability ID card. But for people of disability background, it is very difficult to find this card because they are already victims of disability. For them to run from one government department to another is a challenge. And even when the government has allowed it online, these are also the people who come from economically weaker backgrounds many times. Hence, they lack the formal education and digital access to use online schemes. The reality is that today, although we have a national database which has the details of all people who experience disability, many of them lack access to a single ID card named as UDID, Unique Disability ID card. If they do not have this card, then how can they get benefits of schemes, various walking, hearing aids, and scholarships and reservations that the government is ready to give them? So today we must understand that although this UDID was a very ambitious scheme by creating an all India single portal, a database in which you can have your details, and from there you can also obtain your unique disability ID card. It was a wonderful scheme on paper because it replaced the age old, multiple and confusing state specific disability certificates, because state certificates were variable from one state to another. It did not help these people in getting central government scheme benefits. Hence, the concept of UDID came. That was a great concept. But the current situation is quite bad. Less than 40% of people with physical disabilities, that is 2.68 crore as per the census of 2011, did not have. These are the people who actually could find some of the other UDI card. They have access to it. But over 11 lakh, 60% are pending for last 6 months. So imagine, if the total population of people with physical disabilities was about, say, 5 crore, then only about half of it have been able to receive some benefit. Only 40%, less than 40%. The remaining 60% and more are still pending in the line. Their documents have not been approved. They have not received the UDID card. For 6 months, they are waiting. There is another regional aspect also. In certain states like Tamil Nadu, Meghalaya, Odisha, and Karnataka, 50% people have received UDID. 50% of the physically disabled people have received their unique disability card. The coverage is good. But in certain states like West Bengal, only 6% people have got it. In other states like Andhra, Telangana, there is no information, only what has happened. So there is regional disparity too. Then comes digital barrier also. For example, people with PWDs in the urban areas have a much higher access to digital platforms and much better access to cards like UDID. But similarly, those coming from rural poor backgrounds have zero knowledge and zero access to UDID. Then people with low digital literacy, particularly the rural poor, are also the ones who are not even aware about the UDID. So awareness has been very poor. Why is the coverage so low? One problem is that UDID is taking months to get processed. For example, there are multiple applications, 6 lakh applications that were pending for 6 months. 80% in Himachal and Ladakh and Mizoram. People were applying. They got some knowledge about it, they applied for it. But 6 months passed and nothing was done. Then comes digital divide. As I said, to be able to understand what the government has provided for you in terms of your welfare and empowerment, you should at least have some online access. How can you submit your documents otherwise? Similarly, 60% of Indians above 15 can use basic digital tools like computer and smartphones, whereas 40% can't. And especially PWDs and women, absolutely, they are the ones who are not able to have the access. Now, there is another category. Even among the PWD, out of total people with disability, there are women also, right? Women with disabilities, WWD, this is the worst hit area because although they are having disability, but they are women, and that too from rural India. So they have anyway a poor level of formal education, and hence these are the people who are getting zero benefits. The ground communication has been very poor. The government has created an ambitious database, but the government has not invested enough money, time, and energy in tying up with Gram Sabhas, Asha workers, Anganwadis, or other platforms to enable people from getting knowledge about these tools. Similarly, funding has been a problem. The government has done a lot of funding in the mission. Majority of funds are not utilized. Many states need more funds, especially like Meghalaya, Tamil Nadu, but they are not getting enough funds under the scheme. Then comes low political priority. Now, please understand in India, as I said, substantive equality is a very, very political issue also. We keep saying that the government wants to give substantive equality. I explained you substantive equality also. I hope you are clear about it. That although everyone is equal, but people with special problems, vulnerable people they need some special protection, like SC, ST, OBC, PWD, EWS, women, all of that. But in India, unfortunately, whenever it comes to giving quota, it becomes a political problem because government uses quota for creating vote banks among people. They will only announce reservation and more quotas for those who can give them more votes. Already the PWD population is very low, and then many of them are not registered. They are uncounted. So we don't know how many are they. Then majority of them are rural poor. So the government sees no benefit in helping them out with more quotas and more funding because this is a very weak vote bank for India. Hence, 2.2% is the population of PWD as per 2011 census. We know that it is highly a subverted data right now. But even if it was 5 crore in reality, which I think it is absolutely, the government is not interested in giving them any much quota or support because it is not a very profitable vote bank for the Indian government at all. So that's the article. And now to the question. With reference to the Unique Disability ID, the UDID scheme, consider the following statements. 1. It is implemented by the Department of Empowerment of People with Disabilities. 2. It creates a database for people with disabilities to provide a single ID card, the UDID, for all the schemes. 3. The scheme was introduced under the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. So which of these are valid statements? You need to figure that out. A very good morning, Ponguru. A very good morning, Nagula. Very good morning, Sakshi there, okay? Now, page number 10 is another article. This is how India's External Affairs Minister, Sri Jaishankar, is meeting the German Foreign Minister. The reason? To promote India-EU FTA, India-European Union Free Trade Agreement. In the past, we have seen how India has signed up the free trade agreement with UK, although it is causing some controversy regarding carbon credit rating. But we have. Similarly, India has passed another important FTA agreement with countries like Liechtenstein, Switzerland, all of these. Now, today comes a time when India and Germany are also trying to create a more robust free trade agreement, which is in line with the broader issue, the broader approach of India of creating a free trade agreement with majority European nations. Reason? Because we are experiencing a high tariff burden from the US and we need to diversify our trade markets. Therefore, India is promoting and doing its best to sign a new FTA. Although the initial talks had started back in 2007, they were stopped for some time in 2013 over disagreement regarding similar environmental protocols, similar carbon emission protocols. But today, once again, both the countries are not only relaunching but further enhancing their talks for creating a more comprehensive FTA, free trade agreement. The goal is to finish it by 2025. Entire agenda will be that right now the world is having a lot of economic volatility. We are all aware about how in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, there was a Xinjiang agreement that was signed. Under this Xinjiang declaration, China is also trying to hint at creating a new SCO development bank. Once again, it could threaten the dollar security. America already has been acting super economically insecure by creating at will discretionary tariffs for various countries across the world, India, Brazil being the highest hit victims. Now, in this process, tomorrow, if the SCO bank negotiations increase, the BRICS already is rising as a forum. The world is experiencing a very tight conflict between one, the US and the Israel led group, and the other, Russia China led group. In that case, for India to have a middle ground and to keep up its trade negotiations with majority markets is always a safe idea. They say that don't keep all the eggs in the same basket. That's what India thinks too. India doesn't want to risk it by completely allying with just Russia or just China or just the US. Hence, we are trying to equalize and neutralize our multilateral trade agenda right now. Because of sanctions, because of tariffs, because of China and US dominated supply chains, India wants to have more trade agreements with countries of the EU. For example, when the meeting happened between India's external affairs minister and German external affairs minister, German foreign minister, they both also discussed Russia-Ukraine war. They both also spoke about how China is steadily expanding its extremism in the South China and Indo-Pacific regions. Now, at the same time, although the trade talks were quite smooth, yes, maybe by the end of this year we do have a good, solid free trade agreement with many more countries of the EU, including Germany. But there are some problems even now. India is still experiencing some difficulties because there are arguments going on. For example, European Union, just like America, wants a greater access into Indian market, food and dairy segment. But the Indian government has made it very clear that we will not take a risk with our farmers and with our dairy sector workers. We will not allow foreign investment and foreign entry into agriculture and dairy. India said the same thing to America. India is willing to say the same thing to EU, that no direct access to Indian agriculture. Then India is trying to further improve more mobility, more visa access for Indian nationals, Indian professionals and students in the EU job sector and education sector. Then India also is trying to talk about creating some coordinated policies when it comes to sustainability, carbon border tax issue. Now, this carbon border tax, CBT, is the same issue which is causing a problem in India and United Kingdom's free trade agreement. I told you how that UK wants to impose 66% tax, which means 66% more means UK wants to impose $66 per ton of carbon dioxide secreted by Indian products, which is much higher than Indian rate of 10 to 20%. So anyway, we are scared about this high carbon tax when it comes to UK deal. Once again, other countries of EU, including Germany, is also having same problem. German carbon tax is much higher than the one that India has. And they are planning to tax Indian products because they have very strict environmental protocols. So here also it becomes a very sensitive issue for India. But still India is trying its best to close the deal. Why? Because talking about India-EU relationship, India-EU trade was about euros 120 billion in 2023. And EU countries are India's third largest trading partner after US and UAE. It's EU. Then free trade agreement will give better access to Indian exporters to European markets because American route is closed for them right now. With 50% tariff, they cannot have a profitable export to the US. Hence, EU market is a good option. So across pharmaceutical, IT, textiles, including your gems and jewelry, Europe could be a great investment place. Then both the countries, the EU countries and India, they all together face not only China's aggression, but also America's unstable economic agendas. Then Germany is very keen about creating such a trade which is quite risk free. And Germany knows that from the experience of Italy and sub Saharan Africa and Pakistan. Germany understands that trading with China could be very risky. It could be quite like economic imperialism of China. the loan strategy of China, and Germany doesn't want that. So India is a nice neutral partner for Germany right now. Now both of them are also exploring talks on the confusion regarding Russian oil trade. Now we all know the main reason why US had taxed us to 50% was because we continue to import the cheaper and more accessible crude oil from Russia. Now EU is also saying the same thing, that since EU is a key ally of the NATO and EU supports Ukraine, EU also wants to impose a high sanction on countries which are buying oil from Russia. Now here India had a very tight position. So although German leader has said that even he, quite like America, wants to create a sanction on countries, punishment on countries who are importing oil from Russia, because they strongly believe that this money goes to finance Ukraine war. But as of now, they have not said anything about India. So unlike America, EU was more diplomatic. They have hinted, but they didn't say a word directly. Because India continues to purchase discounted Russian crude oil. We all know that. It's the need of our energy security. Similarly, Germany and France, both of them have said the same thing, that we want to impose sanctions on countries importing oil from Russia. But in the case of India, they have chosen to stay mute right now. Now, already, for example, there is a very strange example that has happened. Let me also talk about it quickly. Although both of them have not directly said anything, neither Germany nor France, they told India indirectly that even we, quite like America, will impose a strong tariff if a country imports oil from Russia. That's our policy. But without taking India's name directly, they have banned every kind of trade from a company known as Nayara Energy. Nayara Energy is a joint venture between India and Russia. It's an Indian company which has finance from Rosneft, that's a Russian company. So it is a proof of how angry European Union is with Russia right now. So you see, there are certain ups and downs right now, but let's see how the trade deal works out. The question is, consider the following questions regarding free trade agreement with India, between India and EU. One, negotiations were relaunched in 2022 after nearly 10 years of gap. Two, India has no major problems with EU on agriculture market sector. Three, EU is India's third largest trading partner. Very easy question. You could answer. Try to pick up the valid code and let us know. Now, the next article, once again, actually is GS paper 1 and 2. Lots of articles from social justice today. We are talking about social justice to poor children, especially those who are rural children in education segment. So, improving of India's education sector is the key topic of the article. Let me quickly see, Shaggy. Okay, there is a slight doubt with, just reconsider the second statement once. Are India and EU having no problems with regard to market access in agriculture? Think about it once more. Very good morning, Sudesh. Okay. Now, this article, as I said, government plans to link 11 lakh Anganwadis with schools. Very interesting topic, GS paper 2, justice for the poor children in education sector. So let me quickly say what is the new news. The news is saying that Indian government, the union government, has decided to link 11 lakh primary schools, preschools, government run preschools called Anganwadi centers with primary schools. Now there is a difference. Primary school refers to the early schooling stages, which is about grade 1 to grade 5. But this is formal schooling. This is primary schooling. But according to Indian government, even before a child starts primary schooling, there is something called preschool. Preschool is almost like a play school, a preparatory school, where a child learns basic communication, basic numeracy, basic things about physical development and environment. They get good nutrition. It shapes their brain and body for taking up formal primary schooling education. Hence, the Indian government has a scheme called Anganwadi scheme, under which the poor rural children shall be able to attend these AWCs, Anganwadi centers, with nutrition and meals being provided to them, sanitation, hygiene being taught to them. Mothers also of these children might get supplements and vaccination time to time. It's a very good initiative because today, under the new education policy 2020, we strongly believe in India that a preschool foundation should be mandatory for up to 3 years for every Indian child who has to enter primary school. Today, the government feels that keeping primary school and Anganwadi separate is also becoming a headache actually. Because majority of children from poor families are not able to then shift their children from Anganwadi to primary school. Many children experience a lack of adjustment problem when they shift from a small Anganwadi to a proper primary school. So today the government is saying, why can't we link together the Anganwadi and primary school in the same building? How will that help? It will help because these young children will not only get early childhood care and education, the ECCE, under Anganwadi from 0 to 6 years, including health, nutrition, vaccine, supplement, but also they can then in the same building start taking up grade 1 onward education. This will really help children from low income families for a smoother transitioning. The ultimate purpose is to provide early education to every Indian child by 2030 in line with India's national education policy. Today, India has more than 14 lakh Anganwadi schools. 2.9 lakh are already linked with the primary schools, although 11 lakh are still pending. So the government is working now to have better links for them. Again, one more thing has come. The government has introduced a scheme called Aadhaar Shila curriculum under the NEP, New Education Policy 2020, for children 3 to 6 years old. Aadhaar Shila is about teaching children through play. Similarly, foundational language and mathematics skill. So that there is also a link between Anganwadi syllabus and grade 1 syllabus. The government wants Anganwadi teachers to strongly coordinate and collaborate with teachers of the primary school. They should undertake common activities. Ultimately, in the long term, the government and the Ministry of Education also want that we should issue one single UIDAI, unique identification card for every Indian child, every Indian individual, where Aadhaar card is linked with Poshan scheme. Same thing is linked with your uh, uh, education documents, and the same thing therefore helps you further to take up formal education in the long term. The purpose is to avoid duplicate documents for every individual. That's it. That was the article. Yes, absolutely, Shaggy. That's valid. Now, the next article is a short article. Let me take 2 more minutes and cover both of these. One is how the Health Ministry in India has planned to make the process of licensing for drug manufacturers more easy, because we are living in the world characterized by many non-communicable plus communicable diseases. Already India is spending just about 1.3% of GDP on healthcare, which is much below the global average of 5%. So today the government, in order to push the pharmaceutical sector to produce more medicines, to produce more vaccines, and to enable poor people a cheaper access to these vaccines, has introduced a new provision under which Indian government is now allowing various pharmaceutical companies to go for lesser licenses and lesser permissions and protocols. It will allow them more freedom to experiment, trial, and introduce the drug in the market. Today, India's pharmaceutical exports have reached US dollar 4.96 billion. Similarly, India is among the top 10 countries who are the leading exporters of generic drugs, the base components of drugs, including other countries from EU and US. Now, this new rule that the government has introduced today, the new drugs and clinical trials, very important GS paper 3, science, technology, healthcare sector. It means now to be able to introduce a vaccine in the market, a new drug in the market, to experiment and do a clinical trial of a new medicine, the companies will not need too many permissions from the government. The licenses have been very relaxed today because India is one of the biggest pharmaceutical hubs of the world when it comes to vaccine and generic medication. Hence, regulatory processes cause unnecessary delays to private companies, and less people therefore are able to finish their research and development, the R&D, on time. By the time the R&D is done, it is already too late. Many people already die from disease. So today, to avoid too much government interference, too much bureaucratic control, red tapeism, and excessive suffering and time that goes in license obtaining, the government has to promote the ease of doing business among the pharmaceutical private companies and public sector companies, eased out the license. It is about liberalization in drug sector. It is about liberalization in pharmaceutical sector. So now the Union Health Ministry says that there is no need to actually get too many approvals. For example, right now there has to be a separate permission that pharmaceutical company needs regarding bioavailability and bioequivalence. Bioavailability means the amount of drug that is actually used in the body. So for every step in drug manufacturing, you need to apply for a test license, which takes more than 2 months. What a waste of time. So now the government is saying, let's replace this with a simple notification system. The companies can notify the government regarding what is the bioavailability, what are the other features of the medicine, and then start issuing approval licenses to them. Except for certain very high risk drugs, it is allowed. Then similarly, rather than taking 90 days, 2 months, the government will take now almost up to 6 weeks to process license for a drug trial. So now no need to actually apply for every single step for a license test, nothing of that sort. Simple application process, simple permission, so that we can expand our drug production and poor people will be helped. Is there an advantage? Absolutely. For the producers and the pharmaceutical manufacturers, it will mean faster approval, lesser money going to government approving. Second, it will encourage more research and development and drug trials in India. Third, it will definitely improve India's share in the global pharmaceutical market. For patients also, they will get drugs faster. They will get them at a cheaper cost. It is every way a win-win solution, except for one problem. Maybe too quick clinical trial could cause some or the other problems for people's health. For example, when COVID vaccines were created on a real-time basis, people later questioned that these COVID vaccines were later associated with a high incidence of cardiovascular disease and blood clotting because enough trial was not conducted. So anytime a vaccine or a drug goes through a quick trial process, people lose faith in that. So that's the only thing we are worried about. But apart from that, yes, it's a great step in introducing Atmanirbhar Bharat plan across India's pharmaceutical segment. A quick question with reference to the new Drugs and Clinical Trial Rule 2019. Consider these statements. One, the proposed bill will replace certain test licenses with notification and intimation mechanism. Means rather than waiting for license approval, you can just inform the government and start the process. Two, the legal process time for test license application will be reduced from 90 to 45 days. And three, all high risk category drugs will be exempted from license requirements. Now, third option is slightly confusing, so you can try to answer the question. And now the last article before I go is a very short one. The government has approved rupees 1,500 crore scheme for what? For recycling of critical minerals. Recently, we saw how under the semiconductor mission, Indian government has said that we will allow mining and processing of 12 more REMs, 12 more rare earth materials, because India wants to become Atmanirbhar in the case of rare earth metals, because these are used for making solar batteries and electric vehicle batteries. Plus, they are also used across many semiconductor manufacturing. So, government allowed 12 more REMs to be mined and processed in India. 76,000 crore rupees has been given to it. Why? We want to become independent Atmanirbhar. As of now, China, Australia, Chile, and America dominates the market. We don't want to depend on these countries, hence, we want to mine it ourselves. But today, a new policy has come that says another 1,500 crore rupees are being given for what? For recycling these materials, because it is very difficult to mine them. One thing is they are available at a very small scale. They are not available widely. Second, mining of rare earth metals leads to a lot of ecological degradation, deforestation, pollution, diseases, toxicity of water and soil. Hence, yes, at the same time, along with mining, we should also focus on recycling critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, which are very important for solar energy and electronic vehicles. India needs to manufacture. But apart from manufacturing, why can't we recycle also? For example, there are so many dumped, wasted electronic batteries, wasted electronic in general equipment, electronic goods are wasted and thrown like that. They are discarded. Why can't we once again recycle their batteries from the scratch. This will help us in adding to our resource, and it will put less pressure on REM mining also. So the government has approved now under the Critical Mineral Mission, the NCMM, very important again, to financially support those companies who will participate in recycling, segregation, separation, and processing of electronic waste. The government will not only give help financially to new companies who want to join this segment, but the existing ones also. Now, please remember, majority of these are informal companies. The companies who collect electronic waste, electronic batteries, and then start recycling them. They are informal sector companies. But today, the government is trying to give them financial incentive. Because yes, if they are able to recycle and retrieve the wasted rare earth material in these electronic waste items, then it will mean that India, through its e-waste, through its lithium ion battery waste, through its vehicles that are now absolutely discarded, will be able to preserve so much rare earth material. That is good for us. And ultimately, what happens? It will also help the medium and small companies who are working for this recycling. The broader picture is once again the National Critical Minerals Mission. At the same time, not only to create more and more Atmanirbharta in rare earth material, but at the same time also respecting Sustainable Development Goal of United Nations, goal number 12. That is about promoting recycle, reuse, reduce of wastage and responsible consumption. So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for being with me on this session. Should there be any questions later, do keep me posted. And if you enjoy the session, then I'll be here tomorrow for you. So like, share and subscribe Study IQ IS for all the recent updates from us. So keep studying and all the best.